4 short days, the monarch has done more to repair the strained special relationship between the two countries than entire legions of diplomats and bureaucrats. And he's done it while managing to appeal simultaneously to conservatives, liberals, royal bashers, monarchists, and most importantly of all, to the president himself.
So Piers Morgan just delivered this brilliant analysis of King Charles's diplomatic masterclass during his 2024 state visit to Trump's White House. What we're seeing here is how effective soft power diplomacy actually works. Charles managed to repair years of damaged US-UK relations while avoiding partisan landmines. Let's break this down.
I'm just wondering, given the extraordinarily united scenes we witnessed in the United States Congress, where left and right came together as one in roaring ovations for my king, and what could have been your king if you hadn't been so reckless 250 years ago, whether this panel so ideologically opposed to each other, so used to shouting at each other.
The irony here is absolutely stunning. Democrats spent 4 years calling Trump an authoritarian king, campaigning on no kings messaging. Yet here they are giving standing ovations to an actual hereditary monarch. It perfectly demonstrates how effective Charles was at transcending American partisan divides through pure diplomatic skill.
In just a few months, President Trump has insulted Brits who died in Afghanistan, savaged the Prime Minister as weak, ridiculed the Royal Navy as non-existent, and written off Britain's warships as toys. All of this while demanding Britain's weak leader sends his non-existent Navy and his toy warships to support the war in Iran.
This context is crucial. Trump's approval was tanking at 41% due to the Iran escalation crisis. Relations with Britain had hit rock bottom after his comments about fallen British soldiers and dismissing their military capabilities. Charles had to overcome massive diplomatic damage in just 4 days.
The king was able to effortlessly make it all feel like small beer without even mentioning it at all. That takes some diplomatic skill. And so does giving the US and the president a subtle lesson on democratic checks and balances without sending said president into a tailspin.
This is masterful statecraft. Instead of direct confrontation, Charles used historical references and shared values to make his points. He reminded America of democratic principles without triggering Trump's defensiveness, something seasoned diplomats struggle with. Pure strategic brilliance in action.
The way you say it can avoid a lot of hoo-ha. On the face of it, the king of my country coming over and sort of lecturing Congress, as some might categorize it, about the importance of NATO, and President Trump has indicated he wants to dismantle it, reminding people that after 9/11, NATO, including Britain, were right there shoulder to shoulder with America.
Exactly right. Charles framed NATO support through 9/11 solidarity rather than criticism of Trump's threats to withdraw. By invoking shared sacrifice in history, he made opposition to NATO sound unpatriotic rather than partisan. That's how you change minds without creating enemies.
But that also he was emphatic about support needed ongoing for Ukraine, which is not hugely popular now with the conservative right here. And of course, he talked about climate change in a way that, again, people on the conservative right would maybe naturally bristle at. So my point being, he made a few, points that could, under normal circumstances, had they come out of a politician's mouth, have engendered a lot more angry response perhaps than they got. But it was taken in the right spirit because of the way that he phrased it.
This timing was perfect. Ukraine fatigue was real among Republicans, and climate change remained toxic on the right. Yet Charles delivered both messages without triggering partisan reflexes. His royal status gave him unique political cover that no elected official could have achieved.
Two kings, the White House posted yesterday, on what could be interpreted as a classic Trumpian troll. But as we know, practical jokes can get out of hand. And Trump's decision to put his own face on the US anniversary passport and coinage will do little to quell the No Kings movement. If this talk shows anything, Mr. President, it's that Brits do royalty best. And judging by the public reaction, if America is going to have a king again anytime soon, well, it might be King Charles.
Trump's Two Kings post was actually acknowledging defeat. After years of Democrats calling him a wannabe monarch, a real king came to town and showed superior leadership, grace, and diplomatic skill. The contrast was devastating, and Trump knew it.
I'm sure that you did too, right? But it was just asking how he felt yesterday had gone, and he replied he's a great guy, talking about King Charles, and had as he saw a wonderful evening. They'll be back tomorrow morning to say goodbye. Last night was special, President DJT. And I think it would have been to him, because he has often said to me that he remembers watching the coronation in 1953, sitting on his mother's knee in New York watching this first ever global televised event.
This psychological insight explains everything. Trump watching the 1953 coronation as a child created deep emotional connections to British royalty. Charles understood this and leveraged that personal history to build genuine rapport. Smart leaders understand that politics is deeply personal.
And I think the idea of him now hosting a British monarch at the White House, where he is the current occupant as president, for Trump actually, on a personal, emotional, family level, is a massive deal. And if it calms him down a bit from what has been a pretty incendiary few months, I'm all in favor.
With Trump's approval at just 41% and mounting pressure over Iran, this visit was politically invaluable. Charles gave Trump a diplomatic win when he desperately needed one, demonstrating presidential stature and international respect. Perfect timing for both leaders.
But there was the irony, Glenn, wasn't there, of all the Democrats who've been marching about no kings, then cheering on an actual king repeatedly in Congress.
The progressive hypocrisy was breathtaking. The same Democrats who spent years warning about Trump's authoritarian tendencies gave multiple standing ovations to someone who literally inherited power through bloodline. Charles exposed their inconsistency brilliantly.
There was a unity, I was going to say, between everybody in Congress, a rare unity which everyone's picked up on, where you don't often see a united Congress, but they were for the king.
Congressional unity is vanishingly rare in modern America. The fact that Charles achieved unanimous approval from both parties shows extraordinary diplomatic skill. When was the last time Congress agreed on anything? Charles managed what seems impossible today.
Well, it might seem a little strange to kick off America's 250th anniversary celebrations by honouring the very crown they kicked out. But as Trump himself explained, you can take the Brits off American soil, but all the ICE agents in the world couldn't remove us from the American soul.
Americans have always maintained this fascinating relationship with British royalty. We rejected the crown but kept the cultural fascination. Charles tapped into that deep psychological connection, understanding that Americans see royalty as glamorous rather than oppressive after 250 years.
Nothing better represents continuity than the monarchy. The fact is that the two countries are stronger together, and they will remain stronger together no matter who's in the White House and who's in number 10.
With midterm elections approaching and political instability everywhere, Charles represented something Americans crave: continuity and stability. While politicians come and go, the monarchy endures. That message resonated powerfully during uncertain times.
But my favourite discovery this week is that King Charles is genuinely hilarious.
Charles's humor was his secret weapon. Americans love wit and self-deprecation, and he delivered both perfectly. His ability to laugh at himself and British stereotypes while maintaining dignity won over skeptics. Personality matters enormously in diplomacy.
It's been a very bad week for those who question the relevance of the monarchy for our modern age. It's been a very good week for Britain, the United States, and for King Charles, and indeed President Trump.
This visit proved the monarchy's continued relevance in modern geopolitics. Charles achieved what traditional diplomats couldn't: genuine relationship repair through personal connection, historical understanding, and strategic messaging. That's why soft power still matters.